Primal, just give me a moment.
Sure. No rush. I'm just showing people my shiny means to an end. The prize of my collection.
So we are picking up now on the primal cards. We are looking at the first one, Cloud Snake Hatchling. This is a card from set one that wasn't available in draft, but now is, and is pretty unexciting.
Yeah, I guess this is like a spark enabler is its big thing. Like, and it has flying, so it can be a good mentor target. Like, it's pulling off double duty as a role player. It's just a 1/2 flyer is not that exciting. It's certainly better than a 1/1 flyer at least. But I think ultimately in this format, it's going to be a valuable role player, and not actually garbage like you might think a 1/2 flyer normally would be, just because of the other things going on in the format. It's doing enough to maybe justify its spot as a 1 or 2 of in certain decks, but certainly not all decks are going to want a Cloud Snake Hatchling.
Yeah, I in some respects I almost feel like this is a build round. I would have to say it's a C minus to me as like a default case, but that's definitely higher than the D that it would have been in set one draft.
Yeah, C minus or maybe even C to start it. Again, like in certain decks you'll be happy to have it, in other ones you're not going to be interested in playing it at all. Like if you end up in some weird Elysian thing, like why do you want a Cloud Snake Hatchling? But yeah, it's got a role to play. Again, I mentioned Mentor and Spark as like the big things. I think you'll want it in those decks, and less so in the other ones. So yeah, C minus, maybe C, who knows? But it's a role player. You can pick it when you want it.
Hardy Stranger is a 1/1 for 1 as well, and it gave strangers +1 health. So this is actually a 1/2 for 1. I don't think that Primal is really the faction that you want to be if you want to be in the Strangers deck, and I don't think this is the sort of bonus that you're the most interested in having. So ultimately, this isn't a big prize for you. Once you're already deep into that deck, sure, like pick them up. It's another Stranger, fine.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like you want to start with the Battle Tested Strangers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then maybe this is a filler card.
Yeah. I mean, the best Stranger is a Primal Stranger. It's Sorting Stranger. But you don't want to...
Yeah.
You want those before you think about also playing your Hardy Strangers. So, yeah, this I'm going to just say is a, I don't know, D minus. I don't know. It has Stranger upside, but other than that, you're never playing this.
Yeah. Yeah, once you hit 2 battle-tested Strangers in your deck, you'll just take any Stranger that you can. But yeah, that's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
Snowcrust Yeti is a 2/1 Aegis for 1. This is also an uncommon. The previous one was an uncommon as well. This is a very aggressive Primal card. Primal was not particularly... I guess the Feln decks were aggressive in set 1, but I really feel that Skycrag coming into the mix and Huru even have really stepped up like aggro Primal's game.
Yeah, again, this a lot like Cloud Snake Hatchling. Like it's a good Spark enabler. It's a good mentor target. Like it has Aegis. If you buff it, you know it'll stick around. It's got a role to play and it does it pretty well. Again, I don't know if it's really any more powerful or weaker than Hatchling. It's probably right around the same spot, like C or C minus, where you play it, it's going to stick around. It's not as good at enabling Spark in the mid to late game, like at least Cloud Snake Hatchling's a flyer, but it's a nice body. So it's probably a bit worse than Hatchling now that I think about it, which I guess maybe puts it actually closer to D+, but I'm still going to go with C minus for now. I think it's got a role to play. Primal can try and get aggressive, and it could work.
Well, I think that also the Huru deck seems to have a little bit of like this buffing stuff matters. Like you mentor this, you feel pretty okay.
Yeah.
So, all things considered, this is probably still a C minus, but definitely once you're in a dedicated, Primal aggro deck, it goes up.
Yeah. All right. Next up is an all-star. We've got Weather the Storm. So 1 cost Primal fast spell. Give a unit +4 health this turn. You thought Refresh couldn't get any worse, but it did.
Yeah,
it did. I know Combat Tricks got worse, but this is just insulting. I'm giving this an F. Never playing this.
Yeah, I don't feel like it even needs very much explanation. This is just too narrow of a card, and it's like reverse detain, and detain is a classic F.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's maybe better than Detain in spots, but yeah, just no. Never playing it.
No.
Hopefully. All right.
Cloud Snake Breeder is our next card, and this is one of those like cards that you're like, maybe Primal's got some beatdowns going on. This is a 2/1 for 2 that has the spark of play a Cloud Snake hatchling with flying. This is the card we saw is the first one in the Primal set. If you can consistently get this on turn 2, I'm pretty scared.
Yeah. Getting this on turn 2 is difficult because of double Primal, but if you're in main Primal, it's a bit easier to do, like if Primal's your main faction. A 2/1 for 2 is not great, but acceptable, and the upside of getting 3 extra stats on an evasive body is nice. I did actually get to play with this in a Felm deck yesterday, and I just went like 2-drop into 3-drop, and then on turn 4, I hit them and played a 2-drop plus Cloud Snake Breeder, and my board was out of control and I won the game. I can just do stuff like that, where, even in the late game, if you just get an evasive hit in somewhere with a flyer, you get another flyer on the board and a 2/1 to block on the ground. I know when we initially talked about this, I compared it to like the Acolyte cycle, except with a bit more upside where, it's a bit cheaper. You can actually play it on 2 and have a busted draw. But even in the mid to late game, you can probably get value out of it. 1/2 flyer is nothing insane, but it's something. I would play an Acolyte that gave me a 1/2 flyer every time. So, a pretty nice card. All that being said, it's still not super high impact. I think it's still just, a C+ or something like that. Crazy.
I would start it at C. We'll have to see how the Primal heavy aggro decks end up feeling.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because you do need to have something like 10 Primal sources in your deck to be able to be happy about this card. So I definitely need to play more with that. But I think that just kind of taking it as a base level right now, I'll just say C. Dragon's Breath. This is a 2-cost spell for 1 Primal Influence, and it has Mentor. The student deals its power and damage to enemy units.
All right. It deals its attack, or I guess in this game it's called strength in damage. It's not its power cost in damage, but
hey man, okay, yeah.
No,
that's
it's been a long day.
That is confusing.
It's been a long day. I just want to clarify. This is a common sorcery speed or normal speed removal spell. It's interesting though. Let's talk about it some more
here. So with things like the Viper or anything with deadly, this just kills anything.
Right.
This is just straight up. Exhaust my unit, kill your thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So if you have any amount of deadly in your deck, this definitely goes up in value. There isn't any deadly, of course, in Primal, so you'd have to be pairing with something like
Dire Fang Spider or an Elysian. There's the snake we just talked about. So there's deadly that you can find. And even if you don't have deadly, this is acceptable. Primal has sometimes you have to deal with something on the ground and you're or say you have a reckless unit, like you can actually use the exhaust as an upside so it doesn't attack that turn. Like your 3/1 flying reckless unit can kill something for a turn that would have actually killed it, and because it's not killer, they're not fighting each other. It's just dealing its damage to that unit. So your fragile units will survive the low cost of being exhausted. Now, it doesn't have the upside of Predator's Instinct, say that you can do like Dark Return shenanigans with it, but the upside of also your unit not dying in the exchange is pretty good. I think this is a very nice removal spell for Primal.
Yeah, relative to the stuff that they get, I can see this being very good. Definitely in a deck that has a lot of bigger units, and there's a lot more of that in Primal, I think. Now. So I'm very interested in this. Still like B- sort of range. I like it at which is really solid for a common, but at the same time, it has some important restrictions.
Yeah, it's good removal. There's also cool synergies, like say you have a large unit with overwhelm, the damage overwhelms and stuff like that. There's cool things going on here. It's killer without the upside or the downside, right? Like it kind of goes both ways. It's nice. I think it's slightly better than, or maybe a lot better than Predator's Instinct, honestly.
Would you put this as a B or a B-?
I'll still just start with B minus. Like there's got some conditions to it. It's not fast. You have to exhaust a unit, but still very nice to have. I don't think you're ever going to cut it, and you'll be happy to pick it pretty early.
Next card is a very easy one to evaluate. It is Maelstrom Bell. It is a 2-cost relic, and it has a lot of rule text
And
that
it's a rare.
basically doesn't do anything. It's a rare. Yeah. Once per turn, you may pay 2 to increase the damage of the top damaging spell of your deck by 1. You do not have close to the density of damaging spells in your deck to make this work, and you also just don't have the time to do that even in a slower format. I don't like this card.
F.
Don't play it.
Let's go.
F.
Yeah.
Mating Call.
Somebody will have fun with that, not in draft.
Yes, that seems like a constructed build around. Yeah, speaking of constructed build-arounds that are also Fs, we have Mating Call. Mentor, play all copies of the student from your top 10 cards of your deck. This is a rare for 2 and 1 Primal Influence. I will, if you get the nut deck that with, I don't know what unit you're getting 10 copies of in
now that we have we have split packs. It's just, I once had a 7 nesting Avasaur deck or whatever before, but yeah, no.
Yeah, F.
F arena.
Yeah, but yeah, give me the screenshots though. If you get this working, please send them my way. I will be happy to see them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a playable card. Your turn.
Oh, Talon Dive. I guess this is playable. 2-cost primal fast spell at uncommon. Give a flying unit +2/+2 and overwhelm this turn. So it's a combat trick and a good one. +2/+2 and overwhelm is probably better than Rampage, or it's close at least. But it can only target flying units. That is restrictive. Now, Primal does have a lot of flying units. I guess that's good. But often they don't need combat tricks because there aren't other flyers around. So, I don't know. This feels like too many conditions for me to really be happy about it. Like, not only does it need to be in a good spot where the combat trick is good, but it also has to be a flying unit. That's asking a lot out of me. I realize Primal has the most flyers, but that's... I still don't like that it can only target flyers. I didn't mind Violent Gust because it could target my opponent's flyers. That was a bit different. And maybe this is not that far behind that card, but I just not a big fan here. I'm going to go with a D. Sure, let's go with D.
Yeah, I think the playable was a little bit of an exaggeration. When I was introducing this one.
It is much better than Mating Call. I will give you that. That was the correct.
Yes, if I had the choice between the two, I would choose Talon Dive over Mating Call. Trailblaze, 2-cost fast spell. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom and then draw a card.
All right.
So this is reasonable filtering at any point in the game. Very, very low impact sort of card. I don't think this is the sort of thing that you actively want to be putting into your deck if you can help it. But the average draft deck, are you going to put this in over a D quality card? Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. It's just it's not a real 2-drop. I would think that you want to play real 2-drops over this. Don't think about it that way in the curve. But in the late game, this usually is going to feel closer to a draw 2 than a draw 1 at fast speed, which is fine.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this whole package leads to D+ or C- still. But because it's all just so low impact. But if you're going to include it, it's never going to hurt you that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with C-. It's tempting to put it at C, but yeah, it's a pretty low impact spell. 2 cost is high, but again, I think this format's a little bit slower, a little more bomb dominated, so digging for those bombs could be important. It doesn't look like there's anything like a Spells Matters deck really coming through or screaming at me, so it's not like we want it for that. But it's you'll have time to cast this, but you don't want too many of them. I don't think there's enough other fast spells that you can play some sort of pseudo draw go in this format or anything like that, where you can hold up a bunch of fast spells and figure out what to do. So it's fine, nothing great. Yeah, C- or C sounds good to me.
We have the Yeti Snow Chucker up next. This is a reckless 2/2 for 2, primal influence, and when Yeti Snow Chucker attacks, it deals 1 damage to the enemy player. This is as aggressive as they come.
Yeah, it is.
And this Yeti has come to smash face, and if you are in the market for that, he's like seems like a good guy to have on your team. You have to be dedicated, though. I think like you want to have your rapid shots. You want to have weapons to put on him. He feels like he'll be fitting into either a hyper aggro Felm or Skycrag deck.
Yeah.
But other than that, you really want to actively avoid something like this.
If you want this card, you'll know you want it, and you'll get it late. Because there are a lot of Primal decks that don't want this. This is a 2-drop that is miserable as a top deck. It is only really good early. And it can get in for some damage, and it's a guaranteed Spark trigger. But again, we don't want to throw away a card to trigger Spark. And if, well, this is running into a 3/3, you're going to have problems with that. Yeah, you get to trigger your Spark, but at what cost? You threw away a card completely. So... yeah, not a fan of this card, but if I end up in a super aggressive deck, I could see this making the cut. Outside of that, it's don't play it. Just do not play this card unless you're looking to really beat down. And even then, don't go out of your way for it. If you get it late, it might make the cut, but ultimately, I don't want to play this. I'm giving it a D+.
Yep, I'll agree with that. Take us on the next card.
All right, next up is Cloud Snake Harrier. 3 costs, 3/3 flyer at rare. It's a rare, because this is really good. Double primal influence requirement. And it has your spells deal +1 damage. This card's just good because it's a 3/3 flyer for 3. The spells dealing damage is really cool, and in Primal you'll have damaging spells, especially if you're in Skycrag, then you'll have even more. But you don't need to be in Skycrag to play this card. It's good regardless of that. A 3/3 flyer for 3 is not like the biggest bomb to end all bombs, but totally good, super acceptable, solid. I think that puts it right at B range, I would say.
Yeah, so I would say I think a 3/3 flyer for 3 is a B, and the other text is not going to come up enough for it to be much different than that. I mean, maybe you take things like mortar and stuff like that a little bit higher as a result of this, but I don't think that you need to. The important part is 3/3 flyer for 3, which is just great.
It's probably a B in most decks, and then like if you're Skycrag, it might creep up to like an A- or something. But either way, you're playing it, you're picking it early. It's a good card.
Now we have Cobalt Ring, another of the ring cycle. This is a relic for 3 that has a 3-cost activation, and this one gives you draw a card, then discard a card. So it's like a blind storyteller on a relic rather than on a fragile body. I think this is slightly below the other 2 that we identified as being strong. But this is a fine filtering effect, like having one of these in your deck, especially if you're mid-rangey to control, you're not going to regret. I watched a draft game last night in which somebody who was struggling in the early game just buried somebody with this, going into the late game, because it was something that this is, virtual card advantage because you're able to talk sway your extra power for something that matters, and dig further into your deck. You can't go, too deep in this sort of thing. Like this is, fighting with things like Wisdom of the Elders and a lot of other card draw effects that are available to you. But if you don't have those, like I don't think that you're going to regret having one of these in your mid-range to controlling decks.
Yeah, this card's good. I won a game yesterday because my opponent decked themselves with it, but that was because my deck was awesome. But if you manage to get into a board seller in the late game, Cobalt Ring's good. If you're stuck on power, this card is miserably bad. But it's got a role to play like all the other rings where you want some sort of late game advantage, and this one gives it to you. If you are aggressive, like you said, it keeps the power flowing, or not the power, but gets rid of the power, keeps the gas flowing, I suppose. And if you're more controlling, still just a good card to have in the late game. I think most decks be happy to have this in their deck. Even if you're super aggressive, you might still want to play this, except on the extreme ends. Again, it essentially does nothing, but it also does everything once you get to a certain point. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, what is this then? Still just like a C plus, or once you know you can be really controlling, it might get better than that. But I don't know if Primal's naturally going to be that controlling.
I kind of have a bias towards these sort of cards. I like filtering. I like looting effects. So I'm going to give this a B minus.
Sure.
Personally.
Sure.
And I also am just very comfortable drafting controlling decks. So that's where I'm going to put it for myself personally.
Yeah. I'm going to draft this higher than the grade I gave it. No doubt.
Yeah. But definitely, like, once again, what we've been saying with a lot of these rings is the second one is a lot worse. Crafty Yeti. This is a 3/2 for 3, 1 primal influence. That as its own, it would be like a D plus C minus kind of level card, and then it has the spark ability of draw a card, then discard a card. Mm-hmm. So that spark ability is nice. It gives Skycrag aggro or Huru aggro a way to filter its draws. 3/2 for 3 isn't embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, it's fine, but it's just totally just normal playable.
Yeah. I think I've drafted this a bit, and I was expecting it to be like at least decent to good, and it was a little worse than that just because there's so many 2/2s around. Like, the body just like gets eaten alive. But the spark is nice, and a 3/2 can block well or hold down the ground. You just need to make sure you've got your flyers going in the meantime. It's just acceptable filler. He's just chucking that broccoli away, so wasteful. But
man, I can understand that. I'm not a big broccoli person.
So yeah, I guess just like squarely C, right? Maybe C minus.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like it at C.
I'm not gonna lose sleep over my grade on that one. Next up, more commons. We've got Foothills Alpha, 3 cost, single primal influence, 2/3, blank text box, D minus. Is there anything else to say about this? Just below rate,
a good doggo.
No upside, 2/3.
All doggos are good. Good dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Definitely a mediocre.
If you really need units, it can be a unit. Try to not put it in your deck.
Yeah. 13 out of 10. But Icebow.
Ooh.
This is a much more exciting card than the previous ones that we were looking at. This is a 1/1 weapon for 3. Still not great, but the summon ability is the wielder deals 1 damage to an enemy. This is a great way to pick off troublesome blockers, annoying flyers. If you put this on one of your deadly units, you're able to kill something with it, so that makes it really good in something like a Legion.
Mm-hmm. In Feln, it's an infiltrate trigger, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, this is a pretty versatile little card.
Yeah.
You definitely want to be aggressively slanted to take advantage of this, I think, or have some other like combos, with it. So don't just kind of put this in your normal deck as just a good stuff sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of clever stuff that you can get away with Icebow.
Yeah, this is a card with I think it's flexible enough and can do enough different things that you'll generally be happy to play like one of it in most primal decks, and certain primal decks, like especially Feln. Like if you draft Feln, you want like as many of these as you can take. They're just like awesome. But it just kind of depends on the deck you end up in. Where if you're like you said, a Legion, like if you have a deadly unit, sure you'll play this. But outside of that, you're not interested in like putting this on a dinosaur or something. But still, it gives you a ping effect, which is sometimes hard to come by, but also, as I said before, I think ping effects are not quite as powerful in this format as they were before. There's just less X1s hanging around. So overall, though, it seems like a card that's either going to be, like, if you know you really want it, it's going to be great, and there's plenty of decks that don't care about it as well. And ultimately, I think that still makes it just a C for me. I don't know.
Yep, I'll agree with that.
This next one, though.
This next one is an enthusiastic F.
Yeah.
This is Mind Link. It is a 3 power relic for double primal influence. When you transform an enemy card not in their deck, draw a copy of the new card. So that means that you get a copy of the thing that it was transformed into, not the card that it transformed from. So if you have polymorph in your deck and you polymorph their 5/5, you get a 1/1 frog, not a 5/5.
All right.
I need to think about this card to see what it does in Constructed, because I don't know why it exists. In Draft, it's totally unplayable, and that's all that needs to be said about it.
Super F. Classic F.
Super.
That is the classic like F legendary where it's like, this thing's really cool and crazy. Don't play it ever in Draft.
Yep. Take us with the next one.
Rider Vanguard is an uncommon Serpent warrior. It costs 3, just a single primal influence. And it's a 2/1 flyer. All right, 2/1 flyer for 3, not great, but I've played Cobalt Acolyte buffing itself before and been fine with it. But it has Spark. Your flying units get +1 attack. So if you just, have a 2-drop, hits your opponent, you get Spark, you play this, it's a 3/1 flyer for 3 now. All right, that's good. That's real good. And it can get way crazier than that. Say one of your flyers is the one enabling Spark. Well, its reward is that flyer also gets larger. Yeah, this is a reason to be in Primal and being an aggressive Spark flying thing deck. Like, this is why you pick Cloud Snake Hatchlings. This card right here.
Yeah, this is like we're putting together a little carve here of Hatchling into Breeder into the Vanguard. Like we're doing something scary already. So this is definitely one to keep your eye out on. Just 2/1 flyer for 3. I just is not a bad field case.
No.
And the ceiling on this card is noticeable. So I would put this as like I don't know if it peaks out. Yeah, it's B-. I'll say it's a B- card.
Yeah, I'm like on the fence between B- and B on it. Like at the end of the day, it's still like a fragile one, but man, if you have enough flyers and you are in Primal, you could, it gives you so many stats. But yeah, I'm going to go with B- for now. But when I see it in action, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm like, oh, I graded this too lowly. Like that is a powerful effect, giving your invasive units more attack for the low cost of 3 on a body. Like that is just excellent. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually going to just bump it up to a B. We're just going to go with there.
Storm Crasher is our next card. This is another flyer. Definitely seeing the some of the pieces come together for that, because you have the density of it. It's a 2/2, and it has the ultimate of pay 6 to give Storm Crasher +2/+2. We've been talking about the cycle already. People should be familiar with it by now. Your 2/2 flyer for 3, totally fine. I think that would be a C+ level card, and the fact that this has a great ability means that I think that it's a solid C+. Not setting any records or anything like that, but good early, good late, and good with what Skycrag generally has going on.
Yeah, this is maybe the best common for Primal. I mean, there's that Dragon Breath, and we're about to talk about Jotun Cyclops, but this is one of the premier commons for Primal. Really, really good. 2/2 flyer for 3 with the upside of turning into a 4/4 on 6 power. This is excellent, excellent card. I'm actually going to go with a B- on it.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll buy B-. And now we have the Jotun Cyclops. So tell us about this one.
Okay, Jotun Cyclops is a common, costs 4 power, double primal influence. You got to be, dedicated to primal here, but not too hard. And it's a 4/3 overwhelm. All right, 4/3 overwhelm for 4. Pretty good body right up front. And it has Spark, create, and draw a snowball. So if you've hit your opponent and you then play Cyclops, you get a snowball. This card is good. This card's real good.
The base case of Back Alley Bouncer is, with Overwhelm, is just not embarrassing at all. And like you're pretty happy with this. It helps enable sparks that are happening later on too. Overwhelm it has definitely got up in value when Spark is a an ability in the set, and those snowballs, they add up, and you're able to get a lot of use of them, and they also are also more valuable now because you're able to use those to trigger a spark. So I'm really liking this package of cards, and especially if you're trying to be aggressive and this is kind of getting to the top of your curve, that's great.
Yep. Like if you already have Spark going, this card's great, and if you don't have it going, this can get Spark going as a 4/3 role. Just an excellent role player. One of the better commons in Primal. C plus.
Yeah, I'll go with C plus on this one. That seems pretty safe. But depending on the strength of the Primal decks, like the Primal aggro decks, this could actually go up still too.
Oh yeah.
Ridgeline Watcher is our next one. 3/3. For 4 with Aegis. I'm not as excited about this card. Like, Aegis is not a great ability in Primal because you don't have a whole lot of things to, like weapons and stuff like that to equip it to. I guess if you're in Huru, you could do something like that. I guess if you're in some sort of Huru Voltron deck, this is playable, but not outstanding still. There's better targets for your Voltroning up.
This is played better than I thought. I was also like under the impression of you like, oh, there's no Voltron decks, like what's going on? And then I lost to it many times already. 3/3 Aegis for 4 turns out to be okay. I mean, we've seen 3/3 for 4 with battle skill be okay. We've seen Endurance, we've seen Overwhelm now, and it turns out with Aegis, it's a good mentor target. Like there's the 5-drop we're about to talk about that mentors a student to give it flying. This is a great target for that. I got destroyed by this when I got a harpoon on it one time. Oh my god, I just couldn't do anything about it. Like a 4/4 quick draw Aegis just like ruined my life. But yeah, you need the payoffs, and then I think you take this as just like a good target. Like it's still not that great of a card, but I was annoyed by it, as no one will probably be surprised by, as I just like Aegis cards just find a way to ruin my life constantly. So yeah, it's still not like great. It's not better than these other Primal commons we were talking about, but it's surprisingly acceptable. Like it can be a good blocker. It's hard to mess with, and when you need to turn around and get aggressive, you can like put something dumb on this and it'll get the job done. So all that being said, it's like still a C, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit colder on it. I think that's a C minus, but that's still pretty close.
Same thing. All right.
Serpent Mount up next. This is a 1/1 flyer for 4, double Primal influence requirement, flying, and it has mentor. Serpent Mount gets the student's attack. This is. When we first talked about this card in one of the earlier ones, I was frustrated by its fragility. I think that still stands. I am convinced now that it's probably better than Sky Snapper, for instance, which is what I was comparing it to there, given the density of mentor stuff and et cetera, et cetera. It's still only like a C to me. It's fine, but not exciting.
Yeah, it can get a lot of attack, but again, like if there are flyers in the sky, they're going to kill this, right? And 4 costs for a flyer that dies to every other flyer out there and requires you to exhaust another unit so it actually has attack. That's a lot of setup. Now, if you somehow get in a board stall and the skies are clear, this card's gonna look great, but 4 is a lot for that, and I think I agree with you. That's around a C.
Yeah. Skyward Sear is up next. This is a card that has confused me from the moment I saw it, and it continues to do so. It is a 1/3 for 4 with double Primal influence, and it has the spark ability of draw a flying unit of your choice from your deck. Like basically with this card, the way that I see it is you like, let's say that you're playing an aggro or mid-rangey, Huru or primal deck. It doesn't matter really what. You just kind of get a 5-drop or a 6-drop flyer. 1/3 is just not an exciting body though. So although this draws a good unit from your deck, like why would you not just want like kind of a draw spell or something, or just a unit that is good by itself? The fact that this sometimes is just a 1/3 for 4 is just so depressing.
Yeah, the downside of this card's real bad, unlike, the 2/1 flyer we were talking about earlier. But the upside could be if you have a bomb flyer, it finds it. And there are bomb flyers. I think in my first draft or second draft, I second or third picked this and ended up in Felm, and I had 1 flyer in my entire deck. Somehow. Right. So it didn't make the cut there, but it's like potentially a bomb if you have another bomb, and outside of that it's just not that good. But again, if you end up in a normal primal deck that actually has a good density of flyers, like even if it just gets Skywalk instructor that we're coming up on, like that's okay, or getting a Storm Crasher out of your deck and then ultimating it later, like that's value. But again, you're playing a 4-drop 1/3 and you have to spark to get it, so I don't know, it's a lot of setup. I think ultimately it's just something like, I don't know, because it's either terrible, like it's unplayable, or it's actually decent, like if you have a lot of flyers. I don't know. It's really hard to evaluate. Like it's either an F, or in the right deck, maybe it's a C+ at best, something like that.
I'm going to put it at D, just put it on the assumption that you shouldn't play this most of the time, and maybe I'll speculate on it in the right situations, but my default is just it's unplayable.
Yeah, I think so as well. And then if you find other bomb flyers and you have early flyers to enable it, maybe it'll get there. Who knows?
We have a couple cards now that are not unplayable. We have Torgov. Tell us about Torgov.
Okay, Torgov Ice Cap Trader is a rare explorer. You don't find many explorers like this one. Costs 4 power, double primal influence, and is a 4/5. So right off the bat, 4/5 for 4. Very, very good card. Just right
all day long. All day long.
Already super happy about that. And then when Torgov hits the enemy player, draw a card, then discard a card. Keep in mind, this is an infiltrate. That's every time he hits the enemy player, you get to do that. You get to loot. And then Torgov gets +3/+3 while you have 15 or more cards in the void. So in the late game, he is a 7/8 for 4. So
this is just a bomb, right?
Yeah, this card is excellent. I don't know what uncommon I would ever take over this if it shows up in pack 1, pick 1. Like, this card's just great.
Yep. Like, it's beatable, so I always put it at like A-. Like, it just kind of dice removal and stuff like that, so that doesn't put it into the true stratosphere of rating. But I just think that he's excellent in so many cases and is really a big incentive to be in the aggro primal decks.
Yeah, you can call this a B+, an A-, an A, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
grade-wise, it's gonna, if it shows up in its pack, it's probably the best card in the pack. It's really good.
Pearlescent Drake is the next one. Is that the title for it? Pearlescent?
Pearlescent, yeah.
Okay.
It means
I just never come across that word.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of opaline or pearlescent. It's kind of the same thing. It's just sure. See how it's like pink-ish. It's pearlescent. TIL.
Yeah. 5 cost, 3 primal, 6/3. Flyer, reckless, and has spark +4 health. If you're able to get this to be a 6/7, flying reckless, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Thank God this is a legend.
Yes, and sure, it has reckless. There are not a lot of cards that really scare me to attack into that are even close to this in cost. And if this is the top end of a primal aggro deck, you're just doing it. You do want to be aggro because I think that it's important to get that spark. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. 6/3 flyer is your reckless isn't insane, but it's fine. But if you're able to get that spark, you're probably going to win that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is either an A- or an A. I haven't decided yet. Like, reckless is a downside, but it can still block the first time it comes down. And
sure,
if you're tilted towards aggression, this card's just, you're not going to find a better card in your deck than this one. The triple primal, I guess I'll use as a tiebreaker and ultimately give it an A-, but it's a huge flying attack legend. Like if you see this in a pack, you're taking it. You don't really have to overthink this one.
Nope. Skywalk Instructor up next. This is a flying 3/2 for 5 and 1 primal, and it has mentor give the student flying. Seems like a totally fine role player especially in a mentor focused deck, and if you have some combos with this. Not blowing off any doors. It's a 3/2 flyer for 5, but certainly going to be fine in many decks, and especially if you can put that flying onto a big beefy dinosaur and something like Elysian, that'll be able to win games.
Yep, I love me a Cobalt Acolyte. Now this one is a Cobalt Acolyte with a slightly better body, but the thing it gets flying to is exhausted that first turn, so you're not leaping a large dinosaur and hitting them right away for a huge chunk of damage. But 3/2 flyer for 5, I mean, we've already talked about how 3/3 flyers for 5 are acceptable. This isn't that much worse than that, and the upside's pretty nice. So really solid card, not insane, but C or C plus range for this one for sure. Especially if flying is as good as my first impression seems to say it is.
I'm putting it at C plus for now.
Yeah.
Swindle is up next. Ooh. This is a 5-cost double primal influence, draw 2 spell with spark draw 3. If I could get behind a Huru or Skycrag aggro deck that just kind of had this as a top end card.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's a great, you trade some resources, maybe you give up 1 or 2 cards in the course of trying to push across damage, then you play this refill, you're back at card parity, but they're at 5 life and you're at 20.
Yeah. This is a tough one, because it's 5 costs, not fast. And it says, I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to make Spark on a fast spell, but that's a different discussion. Draw 2 cards for 5 is bad. That's bad. Draw 3 cards for 5 is really good. I am super happy to do that. That is, and I guess if you're in a spot where you're at a board stall and you somehow have no flyers going, and you're still okay to draw 2 cards there, it's not that bad of a fail case. And I just love drawing cards so much. It's hard for me to think clearly about this one.
I mean, it's something that I don't think that this card is ever going to be totally insane. Because it kind of can often feel like a bit of a win more too. If you're in a situation on 5 where you're able to get in that spark without your card disadvantage, without throwing something away, you are probably winning that game a lot of the time anyway. So ultimately, I would put this as a C plus, where I'm happy to include it in all of my primal decks, but I don't think that it's setting the world on fire in any capacity.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with C plus as well. If the format continues to be as slow as my initial impression, though, I wouldn't be surprised if I move this up my ratings.
This one next is the first card that I've seen that is just I want to be in the mentor deck.
Yeah, this one won't take long to talk about here.
So 4/6 is a Watcher of the Big Ones. It is a 4/6 for 5 double primal influence. When Watcher of the Big Ones is a student, play a 5/5 Carnosaur. If you get this in your pack and pick one in pack 1, you take it. You take every card that says mentor there afterwards, and then you just do dumb crap with it. All the mentor cards are pretty much
every
kind
mentor of card and draw spell you can find.
Yeah, because if you get one 4/6 for 5 at its base level, that would be a B- card, and if you mentor with this once, then you're already in the 8 range. Yeah. So I don't think that much needs to be said about it, other than it's an ultra bomb, and you need to prioritize building around it if you get access to it.
Yep. So A-, I guess. I mean, it doesn't have flying itself; it needs some help, but the baseline is just so good, and the upside is so absurd that. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's just nuts. Just nuts.
You're up on Bulk Crafter Shaman. Right. Tell me about it.
Bulk Crafter Shaman's an odd one here. It's an uncommon 6 power, 1 primal influence, 2/6. A 2/6 for 6 in primal. And it says your spells deal +2 damage. It's a tricky one to evaluate. I'm going to say if I'm in Skycrag, I'll probably play this, and I won't play this in any other deck. So then the question becomes like, is this strong enough? Like +2 spell damage seems really powerful, but is that like how many damaging spells am I getting? Like how many damaging spells have we seen so far in Primal? Like none. One. Like we get snowballs in spots and stuff like that.
I mean, Dragon's Breath is another one.
Yeah, like turning them into three damage is nice. Oh yeah, I guess it works with Dragon Breath because it says deal damage, right, or something. So the student deals its in damage. Okay, yeah, so it works with Dragon Breath, but I don't know if that makes it, you know, a high pick or a priority pick. It just, I don't know. It's a 2/6 for 6 that in Skycrag, I guess, is good. Is it really good? I don't know.
I think that this is just a build around card that like you want the damage cards first, and if you like are getting it going into pack 3 and you already have your 3 or 4 good damage cards in your deck that you're planning to play, is like, yeah, you take this and then, you know, the static bolts and the alchemical blasts and any snowball generating card all move up in your pick order and it might be able to do something. But until you get to that point, I don't think this card is playable in the average deck.
Curving it into Icequake will be funny though. That comes up. We'll get there in a sec. It survives that.
Barely.
I don't know.
Nothing else.
So where do you start with this? Like D+, unless you know it's good, and then maybe you go from there. Yeah,
I'm gonna say D+ as a baseline for sure.
Okay.
Cerso's Meddling. This is our next spell. It is a 6 cost, 1 primal influence, fast, and it transforms a unit into a 2/2 pig. This is pretty overcosted for this effect.
Sure.
But I mean, it's primal, you know, fast removal. Like, I don't know really what you're expecting. Like, playable, unexciting. It's just conditional narrow removal, and there's only so much of that you want to have in your deck. I think this is worse than something like Gun Down. And so I guess that puts it at something like a C.
Yeah, C, maybe C minus. Again, the format feels slower. So, like, at first, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I'll play 1, but I don't think I'll ever play 2. And now I kind of feel like I will play 2 in certain decks. Like, silence is really good in this format. The fact that it's fast means, you know, if your opponent's getting aggressive and you have some big unit somewhere, you can silence their flyer or whatever and eat it because it's a pig. So yeah, somewhere in the C to C minus range. It's not exciting removal, but it is removal, and removal feels hard to come by in this format. So if you're an aggressive deck, you don't want this, but in more mid-rangey, slower, whatever decks, you're gonna take what removal you can get in this format, and this is kind of removal. Of course, if a unit has weapons on it, this isn't gonna really solve your problem, but it can solve a lot of other ones.
Ice Knuckle Jotun is our next card, and this is a 3/6 common giant for 6, 1 primal influence, and it has spark, stun, and enemy unit. I've kind of talked about some of these timing concerns for other cards. This one has a similar one in that you want to usually stun before combat, and spark tends to want to work after combat, which is a huge hit, I think, for this card.
Yeah.
I think that this card actually, if it was just 3/6, stun an enemy unit as a summon, not a spark, I would be giving this something like a C minus. But as a result, I think this is closer to a D minus.
Yeah, D minus sounds about right. I don't really ever want to put this in any primal deck, but if I have to, I will, I guess.
Yeah. There are better options, like not necessarily the next one.
Well, for attacking, maybe.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, you're right. So this is Lumbering Gruan. It is a 6/7 for 6 and 1 primal. It's an uncommon. When Lumbering Gruan blocks a unit, stun Lumbering Gruan. That means it has no disadvantage when it's on the attacks. It's only on the defense that it has that problem. This, like, I guess it's a fine top end for a primal mid-rangey deck. Like, that's a pretty good amount of stats for 6 cost. I feel like a lot of the primal decks want to be a little bit lower curve than this, though.
Yeah, it's in an odd spot. Like, when you do block with it, it's probably going to kill something. It's just it won't be able to block next turn, right? It gets stunned, and if you are being aggressive, it's really hard to stop attacking. It's just not really pushing through damage. It's just forcing chump blocks in most spots. Like, it has no evasion built in. It's just a really big body. I don't know. This is like, it's got a drawback, but the upside is just that it's a 6/7 for 6, which is nice, and it kind of holds down the ground in that if your opponent wants to attack through it, they're probably giving up a unit while your flyers are going. It just doesn't hold down the ground every turn, just every other turn. Is that enough?
Ooh. Iliac points out something good in the chat. It does not damage when blocking.
Oh, because it gets stunned. Yeah, damn. Okay, that's bad.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. That's important to note. So basically, then this is just only aggro.
That you want this on. Literally only aggro.
So in that case, I want my 6 drops to be able to block. Come on, like, it has to be able to block. I think that this is D+.
Sure. Let's go with that.
Because it had all these constraints.
Speaking of only aggro. Nah, this can go into more than aggro. Don't worry about this.
Oh, but does it ever go into aggro? Adaptive Predator. It is a 7 cost, double primal, 8/8 with Overwhelm and Reckless. And then it has the text, when Adaptive Predator hits the enemy player, it gains a random battle skill. This card, when you get it into play, it's going to be absolutely terrifying.
Yep.
8/8 is a lot of stats. If you're not attacking with this already, so like you're doing something wrong. Like Reckless is just that's an ability on this card that teaches you to play it right.
Mm-hmm.
And Overwhelm is a fantastic addition to this too, because it means that you're going to be going through and getting those battle skills immediately. You get flying on this thing. You get Aegis on this thing. It's going to wreck face. 7 is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that even a lot of the aggressive decks aren't going to want this. But if you are looking for a top-end finisher, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I love this card. This card's awesome. Just getting in there, getting attacking, and getting random battle skills. This thing's going to get out of control quickly. As you said, though, it does cost 7, but man, an 8/8 Overwhelm for 7 is just massive. Absolutely absurd. And it also has the benefit of like being in the faction that has like mentor and stuff. So if there is a turn where you might not want to attack, you might be able to stop it and have it get itself ready for the next round or something. I love this card. I think it's just excellent. This is a great finisher. And even the first turn it comes down, it can block. Then it starts attacking. So for at least one turn, it's an 8/8 blocker, and then it gets to getting with the attacking. So, and it'll basically enable Spark for the rest of the game too, if you're concerned. About that too. So your opponent has to have an answer of some sort to it, or it's just going to take over the game. And I like that out of a 7-drop.
Imagine getting this deadly too. Like, there's just like any ability on this, like unblockable. Holy God.
Whatever.
So yeah, I'm gonna start this at a I'm gonna start this at B-. I think. Actually, is B- too conservative?
Let's see, it doesn't fly or stuff like that, but that would put it into like, if you're talking, then it'd be like closer to the A range anyway. I think B or B- is fine here. It's good. It does cost 7, but I think you have more room for 7 drops in most decks anyways. And it's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go with B.
Icequake is up next. Can you read it for me?
Yeah, Icequake is an uncommon spell. Costs 7, double primal. It does 3 damage to each unit and the enemy player. So all your units get dealt 3 damage. All your opponent's units get dealt damage. And their face gets dealt 3 damage. Your face does not get dealt 3 damage. You don't have to worry about that. So, Lightning Storm costs 2 and did 2 damage. This costs 7, does 3 damage. It's killing a bit more, but it also means it's killing a bit more of your things. And if you're like flying matters, you're not interested in this card at all. I'm not sure what Primal deck actually is interested in this.
Yeah, this is just too expensive for me. Like, I mean, sure, I could do some stuff in the late game. They can, I don't know. It's especially considering how aggressive Primal looks in this set. I'm not really into this.
Yeah.
I guess just because it's powerful, I'm going to put it at like a C minus as opposed to in the D range. Like maybe there's a control deck that you can build with this in it. But I think a lot of Primal decks are not going to want to play any copies.
Yeah, I think the majority of Primal decks not interested in this card, but maybe somewhere it's good. I don't see it either yet. I'll start with D plus. Let's go there.
Okay. Okay, let us move on to the shadow cards. We can start off with the 1-cost